Hi, so today we're going to talk about the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain, part of cellular respiration. So oxygen is required for the final steps of cellular respiration, and because the pathways of cellular respiration require oxygen, they are called aerobic. So the first step after glycolysis, if oxygen is present, pyruvic acid goes to the Krebs cycle, okay? It is passed to the second stage of cellular respiration. So during the Krebs cycle, pyruvic acid is broken down into carbon dioxide and a series of energy extracting reactions. So the Krebs cycle begins when pyruvic acid produced by glycolysis enters the mitochondria. So pyruvic acid is entering the mitochondria, going to the Krebs cycle. So one carbon molecule is removed, forming CO2. And electrons are also removed, changing NADH to NAD plus to NADH. So here's carbon dioxide produced by cellular respiration. You may be familiar with it. It's something that you breathe out every second or so. Every time you breathe out, you're breathing out the products of the Krebs cycle. So coenzyme A joins the 2-carbon molecule forming acetyl-CoA. Boom. And acetyl-CoA then adds the 2-carbon acetyl group to a 4-carbon compound forming citric acid. This is some detail you really aren't going to be tested on. What you do need to know is that pyruvic acid goes to the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria, CO2 is released, and these electron carriers are produced, NADH. Okay, after that, the citric acid is broken down into a 5-carbon compound, then into a 4-carbon compound. Okay? 2 more molecules of CO2 are released, and electrons join NAD plus and FAD, forming NADH and FADH2. So more CO2 is released from the Krebs cycle, that's a product, and FADH2 and NADH are created by the Krebs cycle. These are electron transport carriers. They're going to carry the electrons to the electron transport chain. So you do need to know that those are produced by the Krebs cycle. In addition, 1 molecule of ATP is generated. So the Krebs cycle still produces some energy. So the energy tally from 1 molecule of pyruvic acid is 4 NADH molecules, 1 FADH2 molecule, and 1 molecule of ATP. In the presence of oxygen, those high-energy electrons can be used to generate huge amounts of ATP. So after that, these molecules, these electron carriers, go to the electron transport chain. And that uses the high-energy electrons from the Krebs cycle to convert ADP to ATP. So high-energy electrons from NADH and FADH2 are passed along the electron transport chain from one carrier protein to the next. Boom, boom, boom. At the end of the chain, an enzyme combines these electrons with hydrogen ions and oxygen to form water. So water is also a product of cellular respiration, and it is a product of the electron transport chain, so you do need to know that. As the final electron acceptor of the electron transport chain, oxygen gets rid of the low-energy electrons and hydrogen ions. So oxygen acts as an electron acceptor. And when 2 high-energy electrons move down the electron transport chain, their energy is used to move hydrogen ions across the membrane. So we're using these high-energy electrons to move hydrogen ions across the membrane. During electron transport, hydrogen ions build up in the intermembrane space, so it becomes positively charged. We're going to create this charge difference, just like in a battery, that's going to power making ATP. Okay, it's going to power the pump that makes ATP. So we got to make this charge difference. So inside is now more positively charged, outside is more negatively charged. So the other side of the membrane from which those hydrogen ions are taken is now negatively charged. So we've created this charge difference. The inner membranes of the mitochondria contain protein spheres called ATP synthases. This is an ATP synthase molecule. It is going to synthesize or make ATP. So as hydrogen ions escape through the channels into these proteins, the ATP synthase spins. So remember, you want the charge to be equal on both sides. Diffusion wants it to be that way, okay? Everything's better if it's in equilibrium. So these hydrogen ions, the only way they can escape back out is through ATP synthase. And then ATP synthase is going to spin. As it rotates, the enzyme grabs a low-energy ADP, attaching a phosphate, forming high-energy ATP. So as it spins, it creates ATP. On average, each pair of high-energy electrons that moves down the electron transport chain provides enough energy to produce 3 molecules of ATP from ADP. So here's the totals. Glycolysis produces just 2 ATP molecules per molecule of glucose. The complete breakdown of glucose through the entire process of cellular respiration, including glycolysis, results in 36 molecules of ATP. So if you're just going anaerobically through glycolysis, it's only producing 2 ATP molecules per glucose molecule. But if you're going all the way through cellular respiration using oxygen, each glucose molecule can produce 36 molecules of ATP. So here's kind of the breakdown of the products of each stage. So glycolysis is a really good diagram to learn because this has the totals and it tells you what it produces, etc. So glucose is converted to pyruvic acid. You make 2 ATP. You also make 2 NADH. Oops, I went too far. So this is a good one to remember. This is the totals. So comparing photosynthesis and cellular respiration, the energy flows in photosynthesis and cellular respiration take place in opposite directions. If you've noticed, these equations are the exact opposite, okay? If we take a look at photosynthesis, carbon dioxide plus water makes glucose and oxygen. You flip that around, oxygen plus glucose makes carbon dioxide and water. This is cellular respiration. So it's literally the opposite. On a global level, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are also opposites. Photosynthesis removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and cellular respiration puts it back. Photosynthesis releases oxygen into the atmosphere, and cellular respiration uses that oxygen to release energy and food. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching.